Go to Xanadu for a moment.
Yeah, okay.
There was a joke earlier, but why? No, seriously,
well, at least
why?
it's being done
Seriously?
as a self-spoofing satire, no?
Why that?
And so we brought Douglas Carter Bean in to answer this burning question. Douglas, why?
Why?
Why? Oh, my God! And a peanut gallery. Well, thank you for that warm theater talk welcome. Oh, my golly. Because it would be fun. It would bring theater.
Do you need the money that badly?
No, stop.
First of all, Daddy writes movies. So the idea of anyone doing anything at the Helen Hayes for money is quite absurd. No,
That's right. You wanted to go to the Hilton first, right? Because it's bigger seating
Paris
capacity.
Hilton. When I was first approached to do Xanadu, I passed, and vigorously and violently. I kept saying no. My partner of many years, when I said I think I want to do a stage version of Xanadu, he said that sounds like a resume stopper.
You know, first instincts, Douglas, are always good to go with.
But I'll tell you, but then, like the 9th time I saw it, they were showing the credits, and it said Muse #1, Muse #2, and I said, they didn't even have the wherewithal to pick up a children's illustrated book of mythology and like get the names of the muses. And I thought, well, that is, I had been looking for a while for something about this, and I always love the music. It's just a great score, and it had a great premise. And then I thought, there is something about the state of the theater now that we're all a little self-reverential, a little pretentious, and we're throwing up movies on a stage. And there was something hilarious about taking the worst movie
ever made,
and actually taking it back to the very beginning of theater, which is Greek theater, and putting it in an amphitheater, putting people in togas, having people's chorus speaking and choral speaking, and having messengers give information, and take the very purest part of theater with the absolute crassest part of theater and throw them together.
And add roller skates.
Well,
and then put roller skates and then make money off tourists. I mean, that's what he wants.
Well, we have to, I mean, it is fun, and you get the sense watching it that, I mean, you sort of, you know what you've gotten into. You get that sense that you're winking at us throughout the whole thing.
That's what the president of the Dramatists Guild came to see it and said, I didn't know you could sustain a wink for 90 minutes. It's a 90-minute wink. Like,
and who is the president of the Dramatists Guild now?
Some broad.
You have a character saying, this is children's theater for a 40-year-old man.
First of all, no. The line is
40-year-old. I can't have
He wrote it, yeah.
The line is, she says, let's go hide. We're giggling, we're cackling. This is children's theater for 40-year-old gay people.
Yes.
And that was, I thought, would be like a little giggle in the audience. It is basically a battle cry.
A show-stopping line. Yeah.
The people stood up and started waving rainbow flags recently, and we said we have forward motion. The thing that's been so interesting about we're in previews with it is that I would say a third of the audience is gay men. The majority is young professional women coming in groups of like 9 and 10.
In packs.
In packs, and they're very glamorous, and they just sort of scream crazily when these songs, with their unbelievable lyric use, just unbelievable. Like, if you can ever figure out how the actors remember an ELO lyric is beyond
But
me.
my favorite, I mean, one of the greatest mixed metaphors of all time is suddenly the wheels are in motion and I am ready to sail on the ocean.
And what would your problem be with that?
Now, I have to ask you though, when you decide to take on this assignment and you watch the movie again and again, Does it improve?
Did I get combat day?
Does it improve with subsequent
No,
viewings,
it's the
Xanadu?
only thing that you do is you find more faults. Like I think the last time I watched it was I was watching the Whenever You're Away From Me, Gene Kelly Dancing by the Mirrors.
Yeah.
And the last time I watched it, I saw the entire film crew in the mirror. And I said, it is time to stop watching, because now the want of craft is getting painful. What I loved about it was there was this kind of peculiar, for want of a better word, vibe about it. And there was just a look about it that was great. And a sense of innocence and yearning and all those good things masked behind really deplorable writing. I mean, it was, and what I tried to do in writing it, I actually said, I wish it was bad this way. I wish it was bad in a Mummy Dearest Showgirls way. Right. So I actually started writing a bad script that I could then make fun of. So I've really done I did basically 5 drafts in one in this show. And then within that, I got to do something which I really wanted to do, which was deal with Greek mythology, which I love.
And when did you think Muses, Jackie Hoffman, Mary Testa?
That was really early on in the process. When I did the first draft, which was very political. It was actually about, AIDS and the Reagan years, and hey, where'd everybody go? The audience.
Your agent George Lane, what did he say when he read that first draft?
Said, I like 50%. It was, no, but the audience was totally there with it, but not enjoying it.
Did you spend some time with Olivia Newton-John discussing the movie and her performance?
And she's listed in the book, too. I should have just called. No, but she now she's come around and is really excited. She's coming to opening.
Yeah, I told him.
The delightful John Farrar, who wrote the lyric which you just essayed recently, quite beautifully, is indeed came to the first 2 previews and loved it and freaked out and called her.
And so she's
they're very excited.
And we should say Carrie Baker. That's her
Carrie
name.
Butler.
All right, I'm going to start again.
You're a winner, Susan.
I'm Mrs. Malaprop here.
You know, I flashed on when you said I saw Carol Baker
All
in
right,
my
I'm
mind.
gonna start again.
And then quickly on that was, where is Carol Baker?
No, I
it was
can't
like
have
Carol
this.
Baker and
Right.
where is Carol Baker? And now I'm gone. Carrie Butler is a great.
She's fantastic.
She's great. And
She's adorable.
She's cuter than
adorable.
Olivia Newton-John.
She's gorgeous, and she does all kinds of, she calls them Olivia shout-outs, which are little references. The thing is, the other thing about this particular project is that you really don't have to see the movie, and most people haven't seen the movie.
Well, I saw 10 minutes of it. But
and already, and you knew then, is that...
in a theater, I left.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that bad.
Wow. Is that the album was so huge.
Yeah.
Like, most people know the album.
Oh, yeah.
So in a weird way, it requires us to basically do the premise and do whatever we want with the story. And then in a very kind of interesting way, we have to be very faithful to the music. And then we can do kind of little musical tricks.
And you've spent some time studying these lyrics and thinking about them to kind of construct a book around them.
As I am not a hashish user, the lyrics are left wanting for me. Now, I come from, my particular background is like as a kid, I listened to ELO and the like, and then I kind of got into Cole Porter and Rodgers and Hart and Dietz and Schwartz, and so that's really is my.
That's interesting because I went the opposite way. I started with Cole Porter, Dietz and Schwartz, and then I went to ELO. And I find once you go to ELO, it's very hard to go back to those guys. I want to ask you, you are the first show of the new season.
Yes.
And are you confident you're going to get nominated for a Tony Award for your book for the show?
I don't know what Little Mermaid has in its scales,
Its tail.
in its little fishy tail. No, who knows? I mean, it's all. I mean, I honestly did not think I would be nominated this year, and I was. I mean, I got up in the morning to kind of praying Julie would be nominated.
This is for Little Dog Left.
Little Dog Left.
But then
praying Julie, and then when they said my name, I was like, wow.
You killed Corn Boy.
I killed a corn. She's commenting on the fact that I thought when I would get a Tony Award, people would go like, Doug, I've been following your work for decades now, and I'm so proud of you. But what they say is, and I'm dead serious, like you go into a bar and they say, because you were nominated, Corn Boy closed, and that's 40 actors who are out of work. Like, that's my warm greeting. So I've come up with the
What
character.
bar are you going into where people are talking about
Bar
Cora Boy?
Central of Angus?
It
Come
must
on.
be some sort of pub.
Cora Boy
to
was
catch
very
you.
wonderful.
What's it like? I have to ask you that.
I killed a Coram boy. So I came up with this character called the Little Dog, and he says, I killed a Coram boy. I killed him with my bare hands.
What's it like to be nominated for a Tony Award for a show that's closed?
It's hilarious in the fact that, like, I'll be in a bar and I'll buy someone a drink and I'll say, that was my Tony campaign. It's sort of no pressure at all. It does, like, and a lot of people sort of look at you a little bit like you're kind of a whore showing up at a wedding. A little bit like you're going, oh yeah. Like, and I keep saying, it says excellence. And they're like, no, it's a dance marathon.
It says closed.
Stupid. Who's standing at the end is what
But
the
do you
award
feel though
is.
you're like campaigning a little bit? I mean, because Tom Stoppard is not really on the scene the way you are, and it's possible you could topple him? You could have toppled him?
Tom Stoppard? This is what it would take for me to win the Tony Award. All right, Tom Stoppard would have to be, we would find out that he plagiarized the entire 9 hours.
Isaiah Berlin?
Yeah, he plagiarism. We would have to find that the guy who wrote Frost Nixon actually was a serial killer. And, and then, of course, we would find August Wilson's
Still
earlier
alive.
anti-Semitic writing. So, I mean, that, and then I would have a chance. They'd go like, Dad, it's a landslide. So, and that, or perhaps Carl Rove could do my Tony campaign. And we could demand a recount.
I only wish at the Tony Awards where they call out the thing and the Tony Award for Best Play goes to. Just would love to have seen a clip of you starting to get up off your seat, like Tom Stoppard, and you go,
What? Me? What? Like shocked, appalled. Listen, and I just keep saying, living American writer, it can happen to you. Like, it happens.
Well, as you know, this is a show which is full of predictions, and I predict a year from now, and the Tony Award for Best Book to a Musical goes to Mel Brooks and Tom Meehan, Young Frankenstein.
I don't think so. I think you're trying to catch lightning in a jar. It's like it's happened once, it's not going to happen a second time. I just smell it.
You may be right. Well, listen, we wish you the best of luck with Xanadu. Thanks for being a good sport for coming on.
I thought it was enjoyable until like 5 seconds ago. But thank you. It's great
Good night to
be
see
here.
you. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Douglas Carter Bean. It's Xanadu at the Helen Hayes. Don't miss it. I mean, this is right up there with Carousel, Oklahoma, South
it's
Pacific.
really
One
fun.
of the greats.
It's
It's fun.
really
She says,
fun. I saw
shocked.
it. It's fun.
It is fun.
It's fun. Like, I love that fun has become like, basically it's like heroin. It's fun.
And since we began, by the way,
Fantastic closing
we began
on.
the segment with Jesse Green talking about you. Do you have anything to say to Jesse Green?
I forgive you. No, I just great. Thanks.
Jesse Green.
I'm just saying, Jesse. I'm glad you lashed out against the jukebox musical and told everyone to go see Love Music, which is a jukebox musical. So I wish Jesse could be here, but sadly he
had
out of
childcare
town.
issues.
He's out of town, and a lot of theater writers are out of town before the Tonys. Cowardy custard.
It's always fun to see you. Thanks. Good night.
Good night. Drive safely.
We're going to talk about Spring Awakening with the award-winning director Michael Mayer and the librettist Stephen Sater. With me to interrogate them is my co-host Michael RIEDEL of the New York Post. Now, Stephen, you were the mind behind adapting this 1891 play about adolescent angst and bringing it to Broadway as a rock musical.
Yeah.
Why did you think this would work now, this musical about repressed sexuality in our era of wildly licentious sexuality?
Well, but we also live in an era where safe sex is, means abstinence, right? Politically.
Yep.
We really conceived this. We really began talking about this in the wake of the shootings at Columbine. And it was about the resonance the play had for these unheard cries of young people. And what struck me was that pop music, rock music, is the place that kids for generations have found an outlet from and an expression of that same anguish that Wiedekind's kids had no outlet for in their day. So it seemed like I had begun writing songs with Duncan. It seemed like a good marriage.
Duncan Sheik is the composer.
Duncan Sheik, yeah. And so it seemed like a good marriage of, material to what he had to do. And right away, after Duncan and I talked about it, Michael and I had worked together before, but not in a couple of years. And I just could feel Michael in the material. It's, you know, these things are instinctive.
When he says, I felt Michael in the material. Now, this is a play about teenage sexuality, sadomasochism, Wedekind, who was a real radical of his time. How does this material, why does it appeal to you? Why are you in this material?
I think that, if I may speak for Stephen, I think that what he meant was that the play and the themes and the structure of the Wedekind play and the concept of taking that play and creating a musical out of it would be
letting
something
it to a rock
would,
score.
And a punk rock musical.
Yeah,
that's
that's what
something
it is.
that would yank my chain.
Yeah.
And as it happens, I had probably a day or two prior to Stephen's calling me, been on the phone with Peter Manning, who was one of the producers of Sideman, who asked me what I would like to do next. And I said, I'd love to do a new version of Spring Awakening.
No kidding.
I'm not kidding.
Really?
And then
He
the
said
next
it
day,
immediately when I
the
called
phone-
him. He said, I can't believe you're saying this to me.
It was astonishing. So his intuition was dead on.
You know, you're a master caster. I mean, we first met you when you did Sideman, where you just pulled together these wonderful people, and then Thoroughly Modern Millie, and you've assembled this group of wonderful young performers, but who have this crazy look of 1890 and yet are very, you know, now. And one gets the feeling one had watching Rent, only I like this better than Rent, of, you know, connecting with these young people and this force. So what did you go through to get these kids?
Well, it's been a real journey. We started working on the play about 8 years ago.
This has been 8 years?
1999.
Wow.
And what happened?
Those kids weren't born.
What happened was, yes, some
This
of
was going
them,
to be
just about.
a millennial project, right? Because we were going to jump centuries. That was the idea.
Right, and it took a while. And from the very first workshop reading that we did of part of the material, the stuff that had been written, which was at La Jolla Playhouse, we started with, actually we used some Rent kids. We found some kids who had done the national tour, some that were on the West Coast. So we brought them down, we read some of the material, then we went to Sundance, and we did it again, and cast a new group of people. And finally, we went to the Roundabout, which is where we were hoping to do the full production. We did 2 workshops there with 2 different casts. And we went to LA, we had tapes sent in from all over, we went on MySpace.
Chicago.
And we went to Chicago. I mean, it's been a real
this is
journey.
interesting, though. This is a new way of casting Broadway shows for young people. MySpace.
We absolutely
That is
did.
an interesting-
So what do you he goes on MySpace and you just look at their pictures? That
You
they
go
post?
and you find
bands. You can listen to their music.
At some point along this journey that you've had, you had the inspired idea to bring in the choreographer Bill T. Jones, whose work is mostly known in the modern dance world.
Yeah, this is his first real musical.
Sensational, fresh choreography, which I hope gets recognized.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
It's just brilliant.
Yeah.
His whole his whole artistic vision is so complete, and he is so passionate about it. To watch him work with the kids was just mind-boggling. And it was very cool the way we did it. We had a 3-week workshop, and at the end of that workshop, I brought him in to see the show. So I had staged everything, and whenever there was a big number that I thought he should do, I would basically give them a starting point and an ending point. And then he came in, and I said, okay, that's where I want you to attack.
I saw a group of young professionals, shockingly young, some of them were 15 years old, in a room for people, of which I was the oldest, I'm 54, and to be in a room where people from the age of 15 to 54 are talking about doing something together, it was very, very surprising and very touching, actually. When I heard them singing the material and I saw how willing they were to share their feelings, I felt at home.
What was so brilliant, though, he did, though, is he created a through line of movement, which added a layer of story to the show.
It's almost kind of an anti-musical in the sense that we have a conception of sort of classic old-style Broadway shows, and now we've gotten into sort of broken Broadway shows. And this, it picks up on the traditions of the musical theater, but it really is contemporary and much, much livelier than some of the stale kind of stuff that Broadway has these days. Was this deliberate on your part to push the musical in a fresher direction?
Absolutely. One of the things that we first talked about was that we didn't want to do this, to tell this story and have the characters turn to each other and in character burst into song like a Rodgers and Hammerstein show. We knew that we didn't want it to be sung through like Rent or Les Mis or something like that. We knew that the songs needed to function as interior monologues. And Duncan, I think, was really helpful in terms of pushing that, because he was really adamant that if we can make a narrative happen that is accompanied by songs, then his own comfort level as an artist would be really enhanced, because he always feels uncomfortable when it's that other version, sort of the old-fashioned musical
this is very new.
Yes, when they turn, looking deeply into each other's eyes, and then turn to the audience and sing. Which has its charms. It's
wonderful.
The entertainment side of the business was never interesting to me. Like I mean, like when I'm going to play a concert myself, I don't like get up there and dance around and try and
flash and razzle dazzle.
Yeah, that it's just
no sequence.
There's very little gold lame in my shows. In theater too, I feel like I want the audience to be moved, but on hopefully a really deep, profound level, and not on the level of, oh, isn't that darling, or isn't that, oh, that was a nice evening's light entertainment. And I understand why that theater exists, and I think it's great that it exists, and people love that, and that's totally fine. But for me personally, what I'm interested in are things that maybe have a little more gravitas.
Duncan really wanted the music to be relevant to kids' lives today. He was adamant about it. And I really want, and we all really want, I mean, all these things, but I advocated for really having if we were going to do this play, we were going to do this play. You know what I mean? And we dramatically, radically altered this play, and the exigencies of turning it into a musical led us to create heroes' journeys and arcs and structures that don't begin to exist in Wedekind.
How much of the original text did you use?
Well, it's the starting off place for everything. I know Michael's work really well, and I've seen it for years, and I think, well, first of all, I think this is the best thing he's ever done, but I think that the work he did, I do.
And
I
that's
think
saying a lot.
No, I think it's spectacular.
Yeah,
but I also have to
direct.
say that the work he did, which is an idea of ours, and it's, in fact, I fought for hard with Michael for a long time, that I felt it should be a consensual lovemaking. The end of the first act, rather than a rape.
Well, you said it was. You just earlier though. You said it was a rape. The rape.
No, in the original.
In the original
play,
yes.
it's a total rape, and we wanted to tell a story about about what it means to awaken to your sexuality in a very different way, which we understand. And I just think I have to say the work Michael did on that scene, in every aspect, from lighting to sound to the set and the way they come up, and the moments between those two actors who are young people.
Well, it's got, I suppose, the first sexual experience
is
it's got tenderness and brutality all mixed
and no
mixed in
lewdness. No lewdness.
Yeah, that would be. I think that would be untrue to the characters that Stephen has written. In adapting Wedekind's play, he's really created these characters. This Melchior is Stephen's Melchior. This Wendla is his Wendla. This Moritz is his Moritz. It's a true adaptation. It's not a translation at this point. And it never becomes prurient, which was really crucial, I think, for us, because what we want to do is celebrate the sexuality of these young people and acknowledge the darkness inherent in sexuality.
Because it's so repressed.
Because of its repression, and because the nature of sex, it's hidden within us, too. When we first come of age sexually, we are strangers to ourselves. And that strangeness can sometimes engender very complicated, conflicting emotions. And some of them are very pleasurable, some of them are very dark, and they don't necessarily need to stay in the dark place, but until you acknowledge the darkness, it's very hard to move to the light.
Plus, it's such a fascinating window on a time, the 1890s in Germany, when the notion of teenagers didn't even exist, kind of young people in that transition, and that the culture so couldn't deal with sex at all. And it's written a very interesting historical play, albeit a rock musical historical play.
Very much so.
Yeah.
These kids, the kids who survived this play, grew up to become the parents of the Nazis. We don't talk about that in the show, but it's
very
present.
much there.
He says in his essay, you know, when he's, you know, a society wants to hammer away all that's not good. I mean, this comes right from Mein Kampf. That's what he's talking about.
What do you think? What do you think
fascinating.
the kids in your version will grow up to be?
Same.
Actors.
Well, certainly, I think they're all wildly talented and remarkably attractive. So I think
They're voting Republican.
No, they're going places. We've got
It's a
Michael
terrific show, Spring Awakening, at the Eugene O'Neill Theater, directed brilliantly by Michael Mayer.
Thank you.
And music, lyrics, and book by Stephen Sater, a terrific adaptation of the Vatican original.
Thank you.
Thanks for being our guest
Thanks.
on Theater.